like to be honest with you all and start this episode with sharing that when I launched this platform in 2019, I certainly did not have expectations for the platform to reach 9 seasons. I would like to start this new season by thanking you, the listeners, and all of the valuable guests I've had the privilege to interview. I'm Vincent A. Lanci, your host of That Entrepreneur Show. Season 9 is here, and we have a guest that is changing podcasting for the better. He is streaming in from the United Kingdom, and today we are joined by
James Mulvany. Welcome to the show.
James, I'm glad you're joining me and our listeners for Season 9. For all of you joining us for the first time, whether you are looking to start or scale your business, this is the show for you. Each week, I interview a different entrepreneur from across the globe. You never know which motivational journey will inspire you most. Each guest will take you through their story and help you learn from their successes and lessons learned. To begin Season 9, we have an entrepreneur from the podcasting field that is the founder of Matchmaker FM, his newest endeavor, but also Radio.co and Podcast.co. This guy is helping podcasters everywhere find guests for their shows, in addition to so much more. He's been featured on Fox, NBC, CBS, ABC News, and more. So get ready to learn a whole lot, and allow me to now introduce James Mulvany. James, thank you so much for joining the show.
No problem, Vince. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Would you mind introducing yourself a little more to our listeners and previewing your story without giving away too much of your entrepreneurial journey?
So it's a top level sum up. Yeah. So my name's James. I'm 33 years old. I've been running various online businesses for like the last 15 years. I got started when I was about sort of 16, 17 years old. Primarily, I've always been involved with audio. So my businesses right now are all audio focused, and I've historically been involved in the radio space, podcasting, done a couple of other projects as well. Like most entrepreneurs, I've had some failures, some businesses that haven't gone so well, and I've been lucky enough to have some that have gone very well. So kind of 15 years in, I'm still enjoying it. I wake up some days and kind of think, this is amazing. And of course, some days you wake up and you think, oh my God, this is just getting on top of me. But that's just part of what we do as entrepreneurs, right?
I could certainly resonate with all of that. I think it's a perfect time to dive into the Big Five. You ready to rock and roll?
Absolutely. Let's go for it.
There are many reasons and situations that lead individuals into entrepreneurship. Please describe what led you to start your entrepreneurial journey.
Like, I think for me, it was, as I said, I got started at a really early age. I never actually had a job working for anyone. And it was just curiosity. I think like I was 16, I just finished high school, and I had this period of time where I was supposed to be studying for my exams. It's called study leave here in the UK. And rather than actually revising for my exams, I was like, I had this computer. I'd sort of been learning how to build websites, and I was really just like, I want to see if I can make money. My friends were going out doing part-time jobs, paper rounds or working at McDonald's or whatever. And I was like, I don't want to do that. I want to see, can I make money using my computer? So that was kind of my foray into, running online businesses and entrepreneurship. And, I really, at the beginning, all I wanted to do was just like make a few bucks on the side, so to speak. I hadn't got this grand ambition of running a big company or anything like that. I was just like, I don't want to have to go out and get a job working for someone. So what can I do to make some money before I went into college?
A lot of people choose entrepreneurship for the freedom, for that flexibility. But as you mentioned, there has been some bumps in the road. What year did you launch your first business, whether it was intentional or not?
So, well, I suppose I kind of started out online in 2003. So the first business I started was probably about a year later. So about 2004.
One of the early pioneers, it seems, with online businesses. And it's great to see all of your continued success. But since you've been on this journey, please let our listeners know, what are two of the most difficult challenges for you for being an entrepreneur?
Firstly, I think, I think challenges change really throughout the years. Two of my big challenges at the moment are recruitment, because we've been kind of expanding the team, and certainly here in Manchester, it was when you're hiring technical staff, it can be quite difficult. it's a kind of common problem within the tech industry. You know, there's a huge demand and for developers and technical sort of staff, but not enough supply, basically. And I think certainly here in Manchester, that used to be like when I first moved my business here, which was about 10 years ago, it was a lot easier to hire. Now, because there's a lot of bigger companies have moved into Manchester and they're seeing it as a viable alternative outside London, I think it's become harder to hire. So that's one challenge. And I think as well, one of the other challenges as we've sort of grown as a business has been kind of communication. So keeping everyone on the same page, like, is a lot easier to do when you've got, say, 5 to 10 staff. We're currently about 33. So we've had to focus over the last couple of years really on making sure that especially communication between different departments requires, I think, a lot more focus and attention than perhaps it did when we first started out.
Well, congratulations on 33 hires. That's certainly a tremendous feat. Myself speaking, I've had such difficulty finally letting someone else help join my team. And I really needed it for marketing because as I'm getting a little bit older, there are college kids who are on their phones since birth, so they may add value. But unfortunately, I had commitment issues on separate occasions with interns. And after I exhausted some time in the beginning to help the intern feel comfortable and explain how I like things done, I invest that time up front to hopefully not have to invest that time again. I found myself catching up because of lack of commitment. I had to catch up on the work that wasn't done and then catch up to what was needed. Did you run across that in the beginning?
Yeah, it's really interesting because, it's easy to sit here and say, oh yeah, I've got 33 staff and everything, like the first hire is always the most difficult one. And I hired my first member of staff around 2010. And that was, I just graduated from university. So I really spent those 4 years at uni kind of building the business to a level where I was like, I don't need to go out and find a job. I was earning enough to live off. But then, of course, when you take on a member of staff, you're like, this is a huge risk because, well, initially you think it's a huge risk because, suddenly you're not responsible for your own wages, but you've got to pay theirs as well. Mm-hmm. And like you just said, I think the thought of, oh, can we get someone else? Only I understand my business. I think a lot of entrepreneurs, when they start out, it's like you do everything. You wear many hats. I was the sales guy. I was the support guy. I was developing the software. I was building the website. I was doing the sales and marketing. So to get someone in to think, right, how can they possibly understand all these different functions? And I think the thing that to think about when you're a bit of advice, really, when you're thinking about hiring your first member of staff is look at what you do, what you're spending your time doing in your business that is preventing you from moving forward or generating the least amount of income or revenue. So it's taking up a lot of your time, but it's not actually really responsible for, growing the business or generating revenue. That's kind of like the first hire you should make should be to kind of alleviate that pressure away from you as a founder.
Very well said, and thank you for delving deeper into that. And you mentioned before you had some rocky bumps. Not everything went smoothly.
Yeah.
From your experiences in entrepreneurship, what is one of your greatest failures or lessons learned, and what did it teach you?
That's a good question. I mean, like I've had a few businesses that just haven't worked. I started a company which was in an industry I wasn't that familiar with, I think, called CDNFI. And that was probably the biggest failure to date in terms of like I invested a lot of time and money in that business. Obviously by that stage I had I sort of started it probably 3-4 years after I started hiring staff. So I was maybe up to about 10 or 12 then. Okay. And, obviously the team spent a lot of their time developing a platform and really we took it to market without, I don't think I'd fully understood the sort of the demographic that we were targeting and really it just didn't work out. Like it was one of these, we ended up selling the business. But it was probably really a case of just trying to scrape back some of what I spent on it versus like making a huge amount of money. So it was just, that was a catastrophic failure. And I think one of the things that I suppose I learned mainly was going into a market that you're completely unfamiliar with is kind of dangerous sometimes.
I think that's great advice. So you would say more research.
Yeah, and I think I was chasing something where I was like, rather than being genuinely passionate about it, I was thinking, oh, there's an opportunity here. I just thought like, there's clearly money here, but we probably marketed it wrong and maybe we're a little bit late to market. But yeah, this was probably about, I don't know, 8 or 9 years back now. But yeah, I think that was one of those turning points for me where I sort of thought, maybe let's not do this again.
I think you've pivoted to now doing something you enjoy as you have several businesses that you're happy with. You're smiling. I'm looking at you right now. You mentioned the growth into your teams, which is fantastic. But if you could learn a little more and pick one entrepreneur to have a conversation with, we could do dead or alive here, James. Who would you choose?
Oh, gee, one entrepreneur that I could have a conversation with. I think Steve Jobs. He's fascinating, and again, when I was kind of grown, initially started my business in the late 2000s, watching him on stage, like presenting the iPhone and the iPad, and I was totally hooked in and becoming like this kind of Apple nerd. And before that, I used to use Windows when I was kind of growing up, and I think he was watching him shape Apple in that period between like 2007 and maybe 2010. Like that was a huge period for change, and a lot of people got on board with Apple then, and I think that was really fascinating. So Steve Jobs is probably one of those people.
Yes, he's.
I just feel like it was just such a shame that he left us so early, really.
When you look at his video clips and you look at the inspiration that he shares and how he approached life, I also, of course, try to adapt some of his teachings.
Yeah. And just his ability, like to present, like when you see that presentation of how he explained the iPhone, and because the device was something that people had never really seen before, how he broke it down into something that's kind of completely, it was understandable, it was relatable, and immediately people just thought, okay, we completely see what this device is for and the benefits it brings. That's a masterclass in kind of sales and presentation, I think.
Just looking at him, I couldn't agree more. Let's look into the future here, James. We're going to go 1 year and 5 years out. I'm excited to hear about all of the growth you have in mind. Let's talk about 1 year from now.
So I think 1 year, like at the moment, we're seeing huge growth on our platform with Matchmaker.fm. It's a very exciting platform. We launched about a year ago in March 2020. And we've just hit 27,000 users now.
Congratulations.
So we celebrate 25,000, what feels like a few weeks back. So it's kind of it's the numbers are growing every day. So really, we're in a year's time. We've kind of focused initially on building the community. And now it's obviously we're thinking more about how we can monetize it. So we've got lots of things planned on the roadmap over the next year. We're launching our mobile apps. We're introducing some agency functionality. So in a year's time, it'd be interesting to see, where we've taken that to, because we've kind of, as I say, we've got a substantial community there now. We're getting lots of podcasters results and people who want to be on podcast results. So that's kind of the first mission which we've accomplished. So next is like we need to try and get it so it's cash flow positive, basically.
Yeah. And 5 years.
In 5 years, I'd like to have exited one of my businesses. As I say, I've got these 3 different companies now. So really, by then I would hope that one of them's been sold, just to put it simply.
So James, which business out of those 3 have you been working on the longest?
So radio.co is the longest business. I'd say that's kind of like quite mature now. We've got about 4,500, 5,000 clients.
Okay.
So yeah, we launched radio.co July or August 2015. So it's coming up to 6 years old, which it's flown by, to be honest. Like 5 years has gone like that. But it was one of these things where first couple of years we were moving very fast, growing the platform, and it's a little bit more stable now. So we're sort of at kind of a good level. We're still growing, but we've kind of been through that period of like the aggressive growth, and now we're at a level where the platform's stable. We've got lots of clients. We're still onboarding new customers every day, but it was sort of, I feel like we know really what we're doing, and it's a mature product, I guess, now.
I'm looking forward to hearing all about it. I'll have to definitely keep in touch with you and perhaps bring you back on the show down the road to talk about the exit when it happens. Yeah. But thank you for an amazing episode so far. And I think it's a great time to get into the spotlight story.
Okay.
Each week, I share an entrepreneurial journey to inspire our listeners, and I would love to hear your take on this story. As we have a rock star UK entrepreneur on the show this week, I will introduce the story of another in Philip Green. Green left school at 15 and worked for a shoe importer. This job took him across Europe to the US and then the Far East. When he was 21 years old, he set up his own business with a loan of 20,000, I guess it was lira at this point, where he began importing and selling jeans. Next, he bought up bankrupt stock from 10 designer label brands and then sold his clothing from his own retail locations. He continued to gradually build up his businesses over the years, buying many clothing and retail chain stores, earning him the bulk of his fortune today. And right now, He's the current CEO of the Arcadia Group, which is a retail company that includes major brands like Miss Selfridge, Topshop, Top Men, Evans, Wallace, Burton, and Dorothy Perkins. James, what do you like best about his hustle and story?
Well, he's a controversial character. I'm not sure if you're fully aware of like his history. I mean, I'd say he's not the most popular of guys here in the UK now. Like,
Let's talk about it.
He's been very, very well known for like a lot of tax avoidance. So his wife is a permanent resident in Monaco. He goes around super yachts and all that kind of stuff. So he lives this very extravagant, like billionaire lifestyle. But of course, as a result, he's very well known for not paying a huge amount of tax in the UK, which obviously there's, some people will think, that's not great. Recently, Arcadia, the high street stores. So Top Man, for example, is equivalent to like American Eagle. It's very, very similar to American Eagle. It's one of those places I've been to. I bought clothes from when I was growing up. Especially when I was kind of at college. That's the sort of age demographic, I suppose, is probably like 18 to sort of 30. So it's kind of like, and Top Shop is again aimed at younger women. So I think it's a great shame that all those stores have just basically gone bust. And ASOS, which is a big online retailer, have bought the brands. So they've bought the intellectual property and the clothes from Topshop and Topman. However, those the actual retail stores on the high street are apparently not reopening. So of course, again, lots and lots of jobs have been lost there, which is a great shame. And again, I think this is just going back to the whole thing where the high street is changing, isn't it? So many people like this is again as a result, I think, of lockdown, of COVID. The shops have been closed for like the last year, basically, for on and off for the last year. So and as a result, they're not reopening. Philip Green also had another chain of stores, which there was some controversy around, called BHS, which is British Home Stores, which is like an old school department store, and that closed, I think, about probably 5 years ago now. Again, it wasn't great. There was I don't want to sort of get I want to get my facts right, but from what I understand, there were a lot of obviously people who lost their jobs because they shut all the stores down. But from what I understand, he took a lot of money out of that company before it went bust. So I don't know, Philip Green, I'm not sure he's exactly the best role model for everyone, but undoubtedly, like if you listen, when you read his sort of back profile there, in the early days, for sure, he obviously made some smart decisions. He has grown this empire and he has built, this huge business. I think obviously in recent years, things have maybe floundered for him a bit, and maybe he's just not kept up with the times. With Topshop and Top Man, like there were still like hot brands, if you like. There's still people going to them. I just think they hadn't probably adopted enough of a digital strategy, and perhaps they probably had too many locations on the high street, because they're literally in every town, city, sometimes multiple stores in one city, that kind of thing. So of course that causes lots of overheads, and companies like Boohoo and ASOS and like various other online brands in the UK have kind of stolen chunks of that market, because they're all younger people these days are shopping online versus in store, I guess. So yeah, I guess that's my take on it, really.
I appreciate such a thorough answer, and something I've been trying to hold myself more accountable for is picking spotlight stories that resonate better with my guest. In the beginning of my show, I was finding great stories, but I found out there wasn't much correlation. And as an entrepreneur, you're growing. You can't do everything right the first time. So I'm glad that I was able to pick someone that you were able to contribute such valuable feedback and a lot of great learning lessons you provided from your thoroughness. And I have to thank you so much for coming on the show today. I know the listeners are going to see a ton of value in your show. I loved how you started in the beginning saying this is what you've always wanted. You didn't want to work at McDonald's like your friends. You didn't waste time doing things that were going to delay your future. You wanted to get right to it. I loved your difficult parts of entrepreneurship and the conversation we shared about hiring employees, a challenge that many people listening on to this platform will share. And of course, your ambitions you shared with exiting one of your 3 businesses. I'm looking forward to your future. And it is now time for the last word. And I do this in my other podcast series too, because I want the listeners to really have the opportunity to get to know all of my guests. Is there something else that you would like to share with our listeners, James?
Yeah, I mean, I guess just to finish up, podcasting is a great space to be right now. If you're an entrepreneur, you're looking to raise awareness of your products, your services, sign up to matchmaker.fm, because being on podcasts like I'm doing today is a really, really great way to raise awareness and grow your personal brand. I guess that's my finishing word. It's a little bit of a pitch, but why not?
I can agree with you as far as getting onto other podcasts.
Yeah.
First quarter goals, I set a goal of getting myself on 5 outside podcasts to help spread my message, share my goals, help make collaborations happen. This quarter, I'm doing it again because of how much fun I had interacting with others. But James, you mentioned that you have some great services to sign up for. Can you please share how to find those services, your social media, any ways for our listeners to request these services, follow your endeavors?
Yeah, sure. So all of my social links, if you go to jamesm.com, my social media links are on there. Interestingly, I actually have a YouTube video, which might be of interest to your audience, which is called 30 Podcasts in 30 Days. So, you just mentioned that you set yourself a goal of getting like 5 podcasts in a quarter, which I think is good. It's a nice achievable goal. I went crazy last summer because I had some time on my hands because I was in lockdown, and I was like, I'm going to do 30 podcasts in 30 days. And I actually ended up doing 48. So I documented the whole process. So I've got 2 YouTube videos which shows you exactly the process I used, how to kind of convey your story via a pitch, what sort of podcast to look for. So you can go check that out. As I say, my YouTube link's on jamesm.com. Apart from that, if you want to check out our products and services, matchmaker.fm, podcast.co, radio.co. Get in touch if you've got any questions.
Be sure to check out all of his websites and great content, and reach out if you want, because he is here to help. And as you can tell by this conversation, he's got a lot to offer.
Thanks,
It's
Vincent.
also, of course, James, it's also social media time for the show, and we're on whichever platform you like to use. We're at That Entrepreneur Show on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. And on Twitter, we're at Podcasts by Lanci, so you have updates from this show and a mental health break. Of course, my handles are at Vincent A. Lanci for all social media and YouTube, and my website is vincentalanci.com. If you check out my books, DM me. I would love to hear from you all. We have Mr. Lanci Talks Mental Health, Left for Dead, A Story of Redemption, and How to Transform Your Mindset When the Norm is Changed. All are on Amazon and my website now. And as always, I will end the show with a quote that inspired me, and know it will for you too. And this one is from today's Spotlight entrepreneur, Philip Green. He said, quote, "They already know all about brands, but what 16 and 17-year-olds won't necessarily have is experience of the world of work. The more that businesses get involved with schools, the better, because businesses sometimes complain that students don't have what they require to succeed in work." Thank you for listening, and I'll see you all on the next episode of That Entrepreneur Show.